bought a mystery box from the dark web. By Neckhats1. I am a small YouTuber who makes scary and creepy videos because I always like the chills and the idea of the paranormal. So when the whole trend with unboxing mystery boxes from the dark web became popular, I jumped right in. The only problem was that I had to buy it in Bitcoin, which I never used. After trying for a while to exchange my real money to Bitcoin, I was finally able to do it. So I placed the order and waited patiently for the package. A few days passed by, and it finally came. I was so excited and nervous at the same time to see what the mystery box would contain. I set up all my camera gear and microphones. I cleaned the table and put on some gloves. I started recording the unboxing, and you could see the excitement on my face. I cut open the box with a pair of scissors, and the first thing I saw at the very top was a note with my name and my address on it. That freaked me out a little bit, but I could think of a logical explanation. Under the knot, there was a big box and a few envelopes. I thought that the box would be more interesting, so I started with the envelopes to leave the best for last. I opened the first one, and it had a few pictures of different places all over the world. All of them, though, had one thing in common. I have went for holidays to all of those places. It can't be. It must be a coincidence, I thought. That's when I looked more clearly at the pictures. In the background, I could see myself with my family. All of them included, all four of us on the photo. Could it really be? Did my family have a stalker? I didn't believe it. I didn't want to continue the unboxing, but curiosity got the better of me. So I opened the next envelope, and it also had pictures, this time of my house. You could see the whole house from every point of view, and some of the photos were even taken near the windows, and I could see the interior of our house. I was so creeped out. I didn't want to open the last one, but for some stupid reason, I decided that I would probably have a really good reaction for my YouTube video, so I opened it. Right away, I regretted my decision. This time the pictures were from inside of my house. You could see my sister opening the fridge, my dad watching TV, my mom cleaning the dishes, and many others. What freaked me out the most was when I saw a selfie of a masked man next to my bed while I was sleeping. This whole situation gave me a severe headache. I wasn't thinking clearly. There were so many questions on my mind. The last thing in the package was the box that I hadn't opened yet. I got so far, I couldn't just leave it there like that. So I took one deep breath and I cut it open. I almost fainted when I saw what it had inside. There were bones, not human bones, but dog's bones. I could tell from the collar that it was my dog Charlie, who died 3 years ago, and we had buried him in our backyard. I couldn't handle it anymore. I went to the bathroom and puked. I took a few minutes in there, lying on the floor to comprehend everything that happened. Without second thoughts, I grabbed everything and ripped it, and then I burned everything. I didn't want to have any memories from anything that happened that evening. I would try as hard as I could to forget everything. I wanted to act like all of this didn't ever happen, but it was impossible. I never told my family about it, and never will. I, of course, deleted all of the footage and never uploaded the video. I even took a 1-year break from my YouTube channel. After that, I started forgetting the event, and my life started becoming normal again. That's when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered.
Hello, Nick. Did you like the mystery box from 1 year ago?
Said a person with a very, very deep voice. I was speechless and turned off my phone immediately. I still try to recover from that, and writing this story really helped me. And I beg you, please, do not ever buy mystery boxes from the dark web. Count d'Aberville, written by the Prowler. There is a frightening tale of a count during the darkest days of the medieval era, the evil account of Count Reginald d'Aberville, an English noble living on the shores of Gascony in France, residing in his family's ancestral dark stone manor set atop the hills of Bayonne, overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. It is said to be a cold, eerie place, a few servants in and out throughout the day, but besides the Count himself, not much life can be found on the manor grounds. The family he has left lives back in England. He resides at the manor, alone with his most trusted maitre d'hotel, Gabriel Dubois. He had a wife named Josette and a young daughter named Claudette, but they've been dead for some time now. The Count now toils away the ever-longing hours of the day in seclusion. Withdrawn to his study, he writes his manuscripts, paints his portraits and frescoes, but perhaps his favorite thing to do, to idle away the hours, is compose musical pieces on his harpsichord. All through the night, you can hear the Count play his haunting compositions. If anyone has the fortitude to linger about the property at night, they say when the sounds of the melody mix with the strong ocean winds that blow in from the coastline, it creates a ghostly tone, as if the lost spirits from the sea have come back to tell the living their secrets. Night after night, it is but only the Count and his haunted harpsichord, and the local villagers say there's a reason for that, a reason for his family living away from him across the English Channel, and a reason for the deaths of his wife and daughter, a reason for everything. There are few accounts of d'Aberville's mannerisms throughout his life, as he's been protected by mainly his parents, for he was the firstborn and heir to his family's seat. And not much can be found out of his mental state nowadays, for he is protected by his maitre d'hotel, Monsieur Dubois. The man is loyal till his dying breath, but as said before, there are a handful of other servants that work the estate from time to time, and a few have told disturbing accounts of the happenings taking place at the dark stone manor. More than one person has reported seeing the Count conversing with persons who were not there, as if someone is whispering secrets into his ear. Something evil, perhaps. That is the one account that has traveled through the Count's life with a constant commonality. There always seems to be tragic accidents that have taken place throughout his life, dating back to his childhood. He and his brother Charles were playing atop the stairs. Tiddlywinks or jacks, I believe it was. Their governess left them but for a moment, for they were playing and everything seemed fine. But as she walked past the young Count, it seemed as if he was listening to someone speaking in his ear, but his brother was not speaking. The governess thought it odd, but shrugged her shoulders and hurried to the next room to get a blanket for the boys. As she was about to leave the room with the newly acquired blanket, she heard a scream and the sound of consecutive thuds. As she stepped back into the hall, all there was, sitting atop the stairs, was Reginald. His brother Charles was lying lifeless at the bottom of the stairwell, dead. The governess cried out for help, then looked down at the young count. He looked up and smiled, then looked to his right and said, "Is that how I was supposed to do it?" he said with a playful laugh. The governess was frightened beyond belief by the words she just heard uttered from the lips of Reginald's mouth. She told his parents what had happened and what she had heard. They, of course, did not believe her. They instead became infuriated for her accusing someone of noble status of murder, and especially that of a child, their child, and the future head of this family. They then, of course, blamed her for Charles' death, for leaving the boys alone atop the stairs to play, saying her carelessness was to blame for their youngest son's death, not Reginald. She was then terminated on the spot. They then threatened her by saying if she continued her story and they found out she told anyone else, that they would bring murder charges against her and see to it that she be hanged. Of course, she nor the story was ever heard from again, but the protective parents soon found out that their son conversed with the unseen, and that strange and untimely deaths seemed to happen around him, and they learned of this by the most hardest of ways. On the young count's 20th birthday, he and his parents partook in a horseback ride along the cliffs outside the estate grounds overlooking the ocean. The count was in between his mother and father, with his father riding on the outside along the edge of the cliffs. The tale goes that sometime during the ride, something distressed Reginald's horse, which caused the steed to raise up on its hind legs, panicked and thrashing about, which caused his father's horse to do the same thing, except when his horse raised up, the saddle came loose and slid off, taking the old count with it over the side of the cliff. The old count was dead, and the title passed to his son on this saddest of days for the family, after the tragic accident. Or was it? A stable hand later revealed that he saw Reginald tending to his father's saddle, but in the middle of doing so, he began to nod his head in agreement, as if someone was telling him to do something. Officially, no one believed the man's story, but secretly, the one person who believed it was Reginald's mother, for she thought she had seen it too. She became frightened and kept away from her son as much as possible, for she started to believe the stories. She finally left the estate in Gascony and returned to their estate in England many years later, with the tragic deaths of her grandchild and daughter-in-law. She watched one sunny summer day as her son, the Count, and his wife and daughter walked away from the manor to go on a countryside stroll, along with the nanny and the head of the house staff, Monsieur de Bois. The details of the tragic accident that followed differ between the nanny and Monsieur de Bois. Monsieur de Bois claims it was just a tragic accident. The Count was giving his daughter a piggyback ride. They were laughing and having a great time, but she began to wiggle around too much and accidentally hit her father in the side of the head with her knee. And when that happened, it caused him to lose his balance and trip over a large stone that was sticking up from out of the ground. When that happened, little Claudette fell from his grasp and tumbled down the large rocky hill, smashing her head upon the rocks at the bottom. To compound the tragedy, his wife Josette, seeing her daughter about to fall, tried reaching for her to prevent her from falling down the hill. But as she stepped forward, Josette tripped on her husband's outstretched leg and fell forward onto a shard of a broken wooden fence sticking up out of the ground, impaling her through the left eye socket. 2 tragic accidents, 2 tragic deaths, according to Monsieur Dubois. Now, according to the nanny, things transpired quite differently, which she relayed to the Count's mother. She said the stroll started off fine. The Count and his young family were quite jovial and enjoying their summer stroll, looking for a proper spot to have their picnic. Right before he lifted up Claudette, however, for her piggyback ride, he leaned over to his right and nodded his head as if he was agreeing to do something. But no one was there, and no one in our party was talking to him at the moment. Seconds later, he had Claudette up on his shoulders. Then tragedy struck. Little Claudette and Madame Josette were dead. I screamed, and me and Monsieur Dubois rushed over to the edge of the hill. When I got close to the Count to see if he was okay, I swear I heard him say, "Did I do it correctly? Did I fall the right way?" The Count's mother took in the nanny's story and wept, for she knew it to be true. She felt it deep in her old bones. After the tragic accident, the remaining family left the Blackstone Manor and returned to England, never speaking to the Count again. The Count continued his music, composing in seclusion, spending the majority of his days alone. Yet through the door, you could hear him conversing with someone who wasn't there. No one knows who he's been talking to in secret these many decades, but many believe it to be an evil spirit for all the tragic events that follow their conversations. All that remained was Count de Aberville's trusted maître d'hôtel, Monsieur Dubois, and a few servants desperate enough for money. But everyone knows that when the Count looks to be having a conversation, and there's no one else present in the room, death is sure to follow. The Hitchhiker by dieselmonkey. This just happened. I'm sitting at my desk at work, freaking out a little bit. I had to get this down. I live in New England, and every day I commute about 20 miles along a stretch of backroad highway. I usually commute pretty early in the morning, so it's pretty desolate. Sometimes it can be downright creepy, driving through the middle of the woods, with no one to be seen for miles. This morning was obviously slightly more creepy than normal, with a hurricane and all. Most of the small towns in Massachusetts were without power, so long stretches were not only devoid of cars, but also streetlights. Somewhere around the Mass Rhode Island line, I came around a corner to see a man standing in the middle of the road, waving his arms like something is wrong. He's tall and well-built, probably 6'2", 220 pounds, with curly red hair and a beard. I stop in the middle of the road and throw my hazards on. It's the middle of a hurricane, and something could be seriously wrong. Someone could be hurt. But I'm also in the middle of nowhere, so I roll down my windows and throw on my hazards. The hitchhiker makes eye contact and starts walking to my passenger door. He has a slow, methodical pace that makes me think whatever is wrong, he's not in a hurry. And he's making his way over. He passes behind the A-beam of my car, between the windshield and passenger door, and is gone. As soon as he's out of my line of sight, he just vanishes. Wondering if he perhaps collapsed next to my car, I get out and do a lap around, and he is nowhere to be seen. Now I'm sitting in the middle of the road, pitch black in all directions, being just before 6 a.m. No power, so no streetlights. I get the heebie-jeebies and hightail it out of there. Not 5 miles later, I drive by a small dirt parking lot, with no lighting, of course. He's standing there and just watches me pass. It looks like he's laughing as I speed away. Needless to say, I'll be looking for him every day now. N.Y.E. by Jesus Gives Me the Horn. You've been down here for a long time now. The alcohol in your bloodstream is being sweat out, and your coordination is slowly getting better as panic tightens. You look again at your phone, using it as a torch in the darkness. No signal and a lone bar of battery. How long does that leave? It's not a great indicator of time. It's like having a watch without a minute hand. One bar of battery is as abstract as a while, soon, or forever. Apparently it's 8 p.m. on the 1st of January, but it could be midday in autumn, and you wouldn't know any better. All you can be certain of is leaving the party with that girl. The party in the catacombs to bring in the new year. What better place to avoid the usual dregs of the city than to party beneath it? You lost her somewhere back around here. Maybe. It looks as familiar as the previous stretches of darkness, but something's different down here. There are words on the walls in cracked red lipstick, written in letters 4 inches high. They say Charlie was here, 2013. Beneath the message are 2 bodies that are extremely decomposed. You guess that one is male and the other female by their clothing. Their hair and faces are nothing more than a twisted mess of decay. They are still holding each other. That you can tell. Charlie is your name too, but you can't remember what year you were seen in. You've been down here for a long time now. Am I possessed? I don't feel like myself anymore. By Purple Ghost Danu. A while back, I used to serve in the military as an officer in the Navy. During one of my appointments at a base off of Trincomalee Harbor, I was given cabin number 15 of a 2-storied building housing officers of the fleet. A peculiar thing I noticed on the first day I settled in my cabin was that there was no roommate for myself, and the cabin was fully allocated to myself, while all other cabins accommodated 2 officers each. I was not a senior officer of the fleet at the time, and there were many senior officers accommodated adjacent to the room I was allocated. I had a batchmate of mine in an adjoining room, and when he returned after duties, I asked him why I was singled out while everyone else had roommates, which was the routine procedure when allocating accommodation. My batchmate told me that there was a superstition surrounding the cabin number 15, and that people believe it to be haunted. I asked around regarding the origin story about the superstition, and I was not able to find any at the time, but I was able to find out why I was given the cabin. While I was in the Navy, I was pretty infamous for debunking ghost encounters among our junior officers a lot, and I've even taken up open challenges to stay the night alone in some post-war encampments where a lot of carnage took place during the Civil War period in the country. I've even stayed a whole week in a radar outpost where an officer ran for his life after a supernatural encounter without any incident, all alone, and won a few bets even. So the officers who planned the allocation of cabins had decided to give the sole ownership of cabin number 15 to myself, just to test me out on my claims of being a debunker. A few days passed by without incident, but not like in other places I've stayed. I felt that this cabin has an eerie vibe, especially around 3 a.m., where I find myself to wake up for no reason at all. When I wake up, it's not out of fear or surprise. I just open my eyes for no reason, and whenever I check the time, it is around 3 a.m. or close to it, and I find myself unable to doze off afterwards and feel tired in the morning. During the day, while I carry on with my routine duties, I investigated about the cabin, expecting to find the typical someone died or hanged himself in the cabin story, but there was none. Even the building was relatively new, but officers who slept in the cabin, even for a single day, claim that the cabin is haunted. I asked around what type of experiences the officers who slept in the cabin had, and they all sounded exactly like your typical haunting. An apparition appearing beside the bed, shaking you out of bed or scratching and pulling on the leg, but I did not experience any. The only oddity I experienced was the waking up at 3 a.m. A few more days passed by, and now I experience a recurring dream where I find myself staring at what people call a shadow person standing beside my bed. I do not jump up scared from my bed, but keep on staring at the entity who does not have any facial features, but just the empty and dark shadow. And again, I open my eyes, and to see the time is around 3 a.m. I experience the same dream continuously for about 10 to 15 days, and really found it hard to fall back asleep, usually entertaining myself on a mobile game or on YouTube till sunrise. Somehow, from the day I got accommodated in cabin 15, I could not get any sleep past 3 a.m. A few more days passed, and one day as I went to bed, expecting to see the same dream and wake up at 3 a.m., I dreamed of the shadow holding out its dark hand and cover my mouth, and for the first time in many years, I woke up frightened and felt my heart racing with fear. But this time, the clock read 2 a.m. From that day on, I felt my whole personality change, from being optimistic to cautious, and even my taste in food had changed. My love of spicy food changed to the point where now I cannot stand the sight of too much spice. I felt emptiness sweeping me away, and I felt so demotivated in work and even in life. Even now, when I am no longer in the military service, I do not feel myself, and I always feel a dark presence inside of me. Am I possessed? Or is my life taken over by this shadow entity? Is cabin 15 a portal to the shadow world? Was this shadow waiting for the perfect host while scaring everyone else away with parlor tricks? These are the questions I wonder to this day. I would like to give a heartfelt thank you to the special friends of the channel for your overwhelming generosity. If you would like to support the channel, the link is below in the description. Also, please send me your stories and poems to duchessofdarkness27@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram at duchess.ofdarkness and Twitter at duchessofdark and 2. I want to thank all my listeners for your kindness, your encouragement, and your support. It means the world to me. Thank you for joining me. Until next time.